Hey guys, just wanted to hop on here and give you a quick reminder. Our first drop for 2026 is live. In this drop, we've brought back our classic tees, the ones that started this movement, as well as we've added some of our oversized tees option. So you got to check it out. To get yours today, hop over to our website, allergic2avg.com, and go get yours. Now back to the live. All right, welcome to this Tune In Tuesday live. I'm excited about this one, especially because we got a special guest in the studio with us today. I want you to get to know him. I want you to be able to hear his heart, hear his mind. And so without further ado, let me introduce you to Daniel Aguirre. Some call him D-Money. And anyways, tell us a little bit about you, Daniel. Why are you here? What do you do? All the things.
So just aside from our relationship, I mean, you know, kind of cut from the same cloth, Caprock, being around kind of the same vibes, the same mentality. I am actually a full-time firefighter. Been doing that for 10 years. About 7 years ago, I started Rescue and Movers, moving company. So we move people's houses, furniture, local, long distance, commercial, all that stuff. And so just, you know, being, you know, allergic to average has been a big part of my life just because it kind of describes how I live my life, you know, normally. I've never been one to kind of like settle. You know, my mentality has always been different. I think that comes a lot from like my parents, my upbringing and stuff like that. And so yeah, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
So speaking of your parents, because I mean, we don't get to pick our parents. Some have great models of like, hey, this is what this should look like. Or some of us, we have an example of what we shouldn't do. And so if you were to kind of really put it down into one key thing, as far as on that allergic to average mindset of not settling, what's like one thing that comes to mind that your parents did that kind of got you to not settle, not just take the comfort, not just take like what it is, like what might be, maybe it was something they did, something they said, but what was that allowed you to kind of be driven with more of that, like, hey, I don't want to settle? What would you say?
You know, a lot of it was the examples that they set for me, you know, like their professions, like they were both police officers, right? And so being in that kind of first responder, you know, that mindset, you know, I saw my parents work a lot. You know, I would go to the police station with my mom all the time. And, you know, even with my dad, like just being around those type of adults.
Gotcha.
Young. And then too, like just every day, like, you know, playing sports, you know, Kids Inc., stuff like that. You know, my mom, like one thing she always talked about was give 110%. Like I've never been athletic. I was always like tall, but I wasn't like strong. I wasn't fast. I wasn't, you know, anything special. And so like one thing, you know, my parents were like upfront with me about that. Like you have to try, like you have to go, like you have to practice. Like some kids, you know, they can show up and just be good.
Yeah.
You know,
They got the talent.
They got the talent. Like you're going to have to go and put 110%. And so I kind of just kept that with me, you know, into my adulthood. And so, you know, really see, and two, you know, I had friends, you know, that they had, you know, what you might call an average kind of lifestyle, you know, upbringing, whatever. And so I kind of saw the difference in how we lived versus like how other people live. Like there was a lot of discipline, you know, when I was growing up. There was a lot of like, you know, cleaning, you know, keeping your space nice and tidy, you know, nothing ever got dirty, like fitness, you know, working out. I saw both my parents work out from from since I can remember. And so just having that discipline lifestyle,
that standard already set of like,
Exactly.
this is what's expected.
Yeah.
That helps you out. And so like, and I feel like a lot of, I mean, like I said, a lot of us, we get to either see one of two sides of that. Like you get a good model of that, which, you know, as us as individuals, you know, as we grow up and it becomes our duty, our turn to kind of model that, you know, that's what we should do. And then maybe, I mean, for anybody out there that doesn't have that or they didn't see that, that becomes a good example of what not to do, like to not have that structure, to
Right.
not have that standard and how much that plays out. But in that, I mean, I feel like so much of that goes back to like, you know, when we're kind of like born and, you know, again, you don't pick your parents, but your mom or your dad, no matter your relationship or your, you know, the way that these get played out in your life, I mean, that becomes like kind of the dominant model of a male or a female. And so it helps. And I mean, I'm really happy to see how much that played out in your life of having a good example of that. And I mean, again, if you don't have that, right, that becomes something that you get to decide and choose to do differently. And not just for like your own kids, but just even for the people you work with. Sometimes you realize like their upbringing was not like yours. The standard you had was not one they ever had. And I think we see that more and more, you know, in our generation. And so, anyways, I think kind of I wanted to focus on your career as a firefighter. You know, one of the things with Allergic to Average is we take so much like honor and shed that onto first responders because, you know, I've told you this before, but like first responders showing up on the front lines and showing up whenever, you know, in most people's life, whenever a paramedic or a cop or a firefighter shows up, that's a really bad time for them typically. And so you as a first responder, you as a firefighter, and me knowing you personally, you know, I know that as long as you've been doing that 10 years and your reputation, you know, I've been around a lot of firefighters that know you or you've introduced me to. And then just outside of that, even in the moving service, you know, like the moving company and the way you can make people feel, right, is a big deal. And I know that's not accidental. It's not just like who you are, right? That takes some intentionality and you going back to that. So when it comes to like firefighting and, you know, that job and serving and trying to like not settle and just, you know, you're in a lot of scenarios, situations, calls where most people are going to run from that, right? They want, and including me, like I thought about it, you know, a time or two where I wanted to be a firefighter, but then I thought, man, the second I see a busted skull or a car wreck and somebody's bleeding, I might just pass out. And so individuals like you, I have so much respect, and I know more and more we need that, right? We have to have those people. And so with everything that you take on and you see, you know, when everything is chaotic, maybe you're showing up at a call and you're just, you know, taking in things, like what is it that helps you to stay like kind of clear, kind of, you know, calm and just allowing yourself to be effective? What would you say?
Well, I mean, a lot of things, you know, like, so the first part of that question, you know, just being a first responder, all our first responders, fire, EMS, police, you know, dispatchers, you know, you could go on. But when you sign up to fill that role, you are saying, when something happens, I will be there.
Right.
When the bad thing happens, when, you know, danger, when death, when chaos arises, we are saying that we will be there wherever that's at. You know,
Right.
if you're a firefighter in Amarillo and you have a little district, you're saying that you will show up in that district no matter what, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. Right. And so, you know, we call that duty, right? We call that, you know, when you sign up, it is your duty to be that, to show up at your best. And so, you know, a lot of things go into like being able to be calm, you know, when it comes to, you know, like bystanders or civilians. When something happens, it's like, you know, they're seeing something for the first time and it's very excited, it's very loud, it's very chaotic. and it can just be overwhelming, right? For us, we have things like training. We try to train for every scenario. You can't do that, but you try to be as best prepared you can for when that situation arises.
Right.
And so, now looking back, like, going on a structure fire when I was a rookie looks a lot different than me going on a structure fire now. When structure fire would drop and I was a rookie, I mean, it was just like my RPMs were, 1,000 miles an hour, like, let's go finally, like excitement, adrenaline, all that stuff. Now, having been on several structure fires, several situations, like, now I can really not get so amped up and so excited and, take a minute and make a minute and, really focus on the things at hand. And so, a lot of, that power comes from taking emotion out of the situation. If there's a situation or a scenario, a lot of times first responders, they're going to be locked in. They're going to be, their emotion, their excitement, their, oh my gosh, is really out of the equation, and they're, locked in, right? So taking emotion out of it, and then seeing the situation, every scene is different. And no matter what field you're in, fire, police, EMS, there are things that have to happen, right? Like, there are objectives that you need to check off your list, right? Like, so for a structure fire, like, got to get a hydrant, got to get the front door open, we got to do a 360, if there's patients, we got to get them out, get them taken care of, so it's like a list goes down in your brain of A, B, C, D, E, right? And so the whole thing is, knowing your objectives, knowing what the goal is, whatever that may be in whatever field you're in, and then having those objectives to where, okay, this has to happen first, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this. Not getting so necessarily tied up, like I said, in emotion. When, you get your emotions involved, I mean, man, it just,
Right.
it stirs everything up. So staying, prioritizing and executing for sure.
And so I feel like, which is another, importance of an allergic to average individual, I feel like is one that understands the importance of, because like even when you talked about you were never like the most talented and strongest, and so your parents were kind of prepping you for what I heard, you got to be more prepared. Right. And so I feel like a lot of what you're saying is to get those emotions detached and to get out of that. A lot of what you're having to take on, and even what gets you in the best condition to answer these calls and to stay calm, is a lot of the preparation that you take on, right?
Right. Yeah. 100%.
And so, and a lot of the training, and then, I mean, of course, the experience over time, like you said, your very first structure fire versus now, you've had a lot more preparation, you had a lot more time. And so I feel like that's a gold nugget to just like, kind of take in as a reminder to us as individuals, because that's universal. That's across the board. I mean, in any career, any role, just in life in general. And I feel like that's really one of the hardest things, like the more disciplined thing to do is to allow yourself to be the most prepared. And that could just be before a meeting. That could be prepared for your day, like sometimes it's like I talk a lot about, meditating sometimes, or it's getting up, taking a walk, or it's prayer time. But all that's really goes back to this importance of, hey, like the better you can prepare, the more confidence you're going to have, the more, even sense of like calmness and just like a better approach without letting your emotions get involved. And so, I guess a good question that's coming to mind is like, as far as what it takes to prepare, or maybe like, let me ask it like this. What is one of the best things, and they don't have to be what specifically firefighting, but what helps you the most, or is kind of the most effective to prepare for what could be the scariest things that you face, or what is it that you do that like, hey, this helps me to kind of be ready for that when it has to happen, or when it comes, or is that a daily thing? Is that something you remind yourself of, or is that a routine? I mean, what is it that you would say like, hey, this helps me overall It might be in your life, it might be in your career, but this is kind of like what helps me to stay prepared as a person, or best prepared, as best as I can.
The one thing that comes to my mind is this right here.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So this is my notebook. Okay. This is
your handy dandy notebook.
This is like my 15th notebook since I started like having a notebook. And so like when it comes to the day to day, a lot of the things that we have to do or that we've been putting off, they're just up here. They're just in your brain.
Right.
It could be your to-do list, your grocery list, things you need to fix around the house. When it comes to like work stuff, it could be like training ideas or training things that you feel like, the team needs to train on or whatever. A lot of times, I feel like most people have really good ideas all throughout the day, but because they're just in your head, they're not realized onto something that you can see and refer back to.
Right.
So like in the day to day, like my notebook, man, it just, in having a business also, like it takes so much out of my head to be able to put it on a piece of paper and that I can see and check off my list of the things that I do. And I do this every day. A lot of times I do it in the morning, like in my quiet time, like I'll have my coffee or whatever. And then for the day, everything that I need to do comes on here.
Right.
Everything, things that I didn't do last week or the day before goes on here. Every day it starts over. And then as I do the things that I need to do, the priorities, I get to cross those off and then, to like refer back to. And then same thing with training, sometimes I'll hear something or I'll see something and I'll think, man, that would be good. That would be something good to train on, or that would be something, that we could use, and it all goes right here.
Yep.
And then, even if I'm in, church or if I'm watching a podcast and they say something that resonates, I got my notebook. I write it down and same thing, you can refer back to it. And so, and this was something that the great Matt Lee had started me on. He actually gave me my first one. It was a Mead little, it wasn't, it was smaller than this one for sure, but had a little pocket, he put an A to A sticker on it. And he just told me that thing. He was like, use it as everything, right? Everything that you have, write it in here. And it's something a practice that I've continued to carry with me today. And I try to preach to other people to do, this is what I would call a game changer.
The game changer.
Yes, for
absolutely. Sure. No, that's gold. That's gold because I had to pull mine out from over here, but same thing, It's yep. It's the journal. But hey, this is another solid takeaway because if you were actually, and Daniel, just you could just show some pictures in your, like, you don't have to show nothing specific, but if you kind of look through there and you kind of see, the notes taken day by day and ideas, thoughts, right? That idea of, that kind of looks chaotic in itself if you just kind of take a glance, right? Right. You just so look at my camera. Yeah.
Look at mine.
That's what I'm saying.
It does not look but like this was a job. I shouldn't show his information, but this was, one of them was a job, like info. I took down customer name, all the stuff. And then to do, like January 31st, I have all my things. And you notice like some of them aren't on there, but they go on to the next day, to do. This was today. Look at all the stuff I have to do today, and a lot of it I can't get to today, but that's okay.
Right.
It's not about pressure. It's just about that reminder. Because normally, like, if I didn't have this, all of this would be in my head, just floating around, like me not trying to forget. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. And so, yeah, it's a game changer. And then too, like, if I get frustrated or if I get, I get anxious, I write, I put it out, I get it out of my head and I put it, on. When it comes to the job, right now, mental health is a big thing in the first responder community. It's new. I shouldn't say new, but it's new. It's a new thing. And so, a lot of we're starting to see our first responders suffer from mental health, anxiety, addiction, all kinds of stuff, depression. And, to me, I feel like if somebody's having a hard time at work, 9 times out of 10, they're having a hard time at home. You know, it's not just the job. Sometimes the job is the only thing that's keeping us together, you know?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's the family stuff that's hard. And so if you know, seeing a therapist is a good thing to practice, is a good tool to use, because it gets what's in your head out.
Yep.
You know, and so for me, like, this is kind of like my therapy. I get to put into words how I'm feeling, or what I'm mad about or anxious about or whatever, you know. And
Yeah.
so again, game changer, because if not, I got like 3 pages right here where I was just literally whatever was in my head, whatever I was like struggling with, it's on paper now. And I tell you, at the end of the day, I feel way better, you know, after even my to-do list, if I have a lot of things to do tomorrow and like it's keeping me up, man, I'll get in my notebook and I'll just write it out. And so that for me has been a game changer.
Well, yeah. And I feel like it's also a ticket to getting closer to what we all want, which is, you know, to have peace of mind. Because like if a journal can look like this, you know, and all these ideas and all, but imagine like, you know, you were talking about that earlier. Imagine all this in your head and having no way to process or track or to have any kind of focus over it. And so anyway, just an idea for, you know, you guys watching. If, you know, most of us, we take on a lot and there's a lot to do. There's a lot to have to process. And so, you know, keeping a journal, it is a discipline, but it's one that really like allows things to get a little bit sharper. Or you know, a lot of times for me too, I think most of us, we do really good about remembering, oh, I need to do that, or a pop in your mind in the day. And so like having that kind of just spiral, that journal around you allows you to at least take it out of your head, you know, and put it on paper. So you're not trying to like, oh, I need to remember that, or giving Siri, you know, 10 reminders a day. And it allows you to actually like get a little bit sharper, get a little bit more focused. And so that's a little nugget, a little tool. It gets you a spiral. It don't have to be, you know, this size, but and you keep that in a, you know, a little pin with you, and any ideas, any thoughts. A lot of times it's helping you to kind of, you know, get rid of the things that you're trying to remember or that needs to be done. And once you can put it on paper, you can always go back and visit that at another time, right? It's kind of like putting it in a little container. And when it's time to go and look back, that becomes part of a good, like Daniel does too, you know, a good morning routine. A lot of times when I get to the office or I'm kind of starting my day, that's when I open up my spiral and I kind of look through, okay, what is there to do? And so I love that you shared that. And, you know, yeah, since I kind of introduced that idea, man, I think by far you're probably the one person that's like, I mean, how many spirals have you been through now?
I mean, I have a bunch. I mean, I have them all. Like I say, I think this is like 15.
And you're almost done with that one. You're about to have to move on.
One too.
And it becomes just a last thing. I mean, it becomes also a part of where, you know, you can look back and go through that spiral and look at that certain season or time of your life, what you were taking on, sometimes what you've accomplished, what you've done, what you overcome. And it's a really good tool. It's just a really good resource. And so that's free for y'all. So thank you for mentioning that. But another question in just kind of your, you know, going back to firefighting, you being a first responder, you know, your profession as a firefighter, and that's really, I mean, any profession across the board, but especially dealing with chaos and so much of what you guys take on, it's easy to kind of like show up and start operating out of, you know, like being on autopilot. And so I would look at some people I personally knew, or even just through like I've known about, and they've been in the first responding, you know, industry, and they're kind of a frontline worker. And so, you know, like you were saying earlier, hey, you're expected, like it's a commitment we make to show up, right, and to be there. And so what would you say that when you think about showing up, and as long as you've been doing it, what helps you to avoid just, you know, showing up on autopilot and just operating where it's like, all right, here's what we got to do, that's it, and then you just kind of clocking in, clocking out? What helps you to not like settle for just that autopilot mode of just like, this is what and again, being at it 10 years, what keeps it like, no, there's more, I want to be more, I want to give more? Where does that stem from, or what keeps you driven in that area?
Well, I mean, I'll be the first to say that I have definitely, tried to be the, you know, the pusher, the vibe setter, the description fitter, right? But I'll be the first to say that, I have gone plenty of times being on autopilot,
Right.
and it's easy to be on autopilot. You're almost like default setting is to just go and just do the things that you do. I mean, even as firefighters, yeah, as different the calls may be, call to call, the daily, we do a lot of things repetitively. I mean, we mop the floors like 50 times a day, trucks clean, everything clean, clean, clean. And so, that type of stuff, the monotony, every job's going to have that. Every job's going to have your monotonous actions and things that you have to do every day. But it has to be a conscious decision to want to go and perform at your best, and that may not be 100%. You may only have 80% to give that day, 70% to give that day, but when you show up to try to better yourself, try to better the team, and try to better the community that you serve. It has to be a conscious. What would Jonathan Garrick say? He would say consistent intentionality.
Yep.
You have to be consistent about being intentional,
Right.
about the things that you do, the things that you like. You can say, okay, like I'm going to go to work and I'm going to, do better, and I'm going to, be allergic to average, whatever you want to say, and you wake up the next morning and you're back into your normal autopilot. You have to like wake up and make that conscious effort. It takes effort to have a good day, to have a positive day, to not go and be one of the ones, you start complaining, especially at the firehouse. You're going to have your older guys. They want to sit, they want to complain, they want to talk about, this, that, and the other. And a lot of it is the leadership. I've always been kind of a leader, right? And I've always been comfortable with leading from the bottom. And so, not necessarily having to be the guy in charge to kind of be the one to set the tone. That's always a big misconception. Like, sometimes we want to blame our bosses or our lieutenants or our captains or your chiefs or whoever's, your upper management. It's easy to blame, for the, people will blame them for the attitude and the vibe. It's like, no, like you can bring the vibe no matter what level. You could be the lowest man on the totem pole and you can still make that conscious effort to come and give 110%.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think, I mean, again, that is definitely like when we look at just kind of like the default mode. I mean, I would say everybody naturally comes from, the path of least resistance, the easier path, just as, this isn't as much work required. This isn't as hard. And so, with allergic to average and, a lot of what we promote and not settling, thinking different, being the difference, right? What is kind of going to my next question? Like, why is that so important to you? Like, I mean, because you could still be, I should say, good at what you do, at your career, even as an individual. But why is it important in your life and in the career that you serve in, and just overall in the way you show up? Why is it important for you to at least aim for excellence and to be great? Whenever, for most people, good is good enough. Good is, they'll take good. But, as much as I've learned from you, I've been around you and the way that you show up, what is it about you, if you could take us to that part of like, what feeds that? Like, no, I don't want to just be good. I want to be great. I want excellence. And why does that matter?
That's a good question. That's a good question. You know, it matters to me. That's a really good question.
I appreciate it. It just came to me.
Ask me again. Ask me again.
Okay,
I
so
need to hear it one more time.
when good is good enough for a lot of people, and there's a lot of ways that you could get away with just being good.
Yeah.
And I know you know the difference between great and excellent in a lot of the ways that you show. But why is that so important to you to not just exist as good?
I think it goes back to how I was raised.
Okay.
And again, the discipline that was set, the example that was set with my parents. But, going back to the 110% thing, 110% to me means even if you think you give 100, you give your all, there's always 10% more that you can tap into. And you could say 15%, you could say 20%, you could say whatever. But there is always more.
Yeah.
There is always more that you could do. There's always more that there's always a better example that you could set. There's always, not to say like nobody does enough, but I'm saying like, that has to come from within, I think. You can try to teach people that, but you have to want it.
Right.
You can't really want something better for somebody else. If somebody is good with okay, with getting by, the only thing you could do is maintain what you got going on, keep the drive that you have, because a lot of people are perfectly okay with just doing the bare minimum, being allergic to average, that mindset. It has to be, it's more than just a brand,
Right.
It's a mindset, but it's who you are. I remember the first time we really talked outside of high school when we had already like become adults and you had your family going and I had my family going. And you were explaining to this, I think I had been like all those people, oh, I see that, what is that? I think I'd asked you that question. And you went into allergic to average and what it is and the mentality. And I was just there like, that described me.
Yeah.
I was like, what you're telling me right now it describes myself, And so for me, it is just a part of my DNA. It is a part that the discipline and the motivation that was instilled in me from my parents is something that I still carry with me. And I think that has everything to do with how I carry myself at my job, how I carry myself in every aspect, business, relationships, friendships, everything. And so you have to want better for yourself. Nobody can want better for you. I mean, they can, but nothing's going to happen unless you want it. You have to want that extra. You have to know that there is more out there for you. And to everybody out there that's listening to this, like whatever situation you're in, whatever field you're in, whatever career, whatever anything, there is always more for you. There is always more that you can aspire to be. There's always more that you can bring to the table. And so
That's good.
that's what I think.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's I appreciate you sharing that, and I feel like that desire for more. I think I feel like it's safe to say we all have that, and a lot of us, as we become adults and we get older, we allow that desire to be kind of dimmed out and muted in our life because we start to think, well, who am I, or I'm not good enough, or that's not obtained. I can't do that, right? That more. And that ability to allow yourself and continue to grow into the more is really something that I feel like takes, I wouldn't say a special person, but it takes, again, intentionality. It doesn't happen by accident. To protect and really continue to grow into what does more look like and how do I obtain that and how do I accomplish that, it actually comes from, allowing yourself to be more. And when I talk about that inner infrastructure, the right heart, right thought, and to kind of keep yourself locked into that, I feel like that's what keeps us on that path of realizing, like, I have more, I can be more, I can accomplish more, I can give more. And, when you were talking about the, 110% and that 10% past the 100, I feel like that's really what gives us that evidence that we all look for, that we are bigger, we're more capable, we're more brilliant, we're more beautiful, like whatever you want to call it. You're more. We are the average person doesn't realize how much more they are than the story they tell themselves. And it really takes us as individuals to challenge that and to really update and upgrade our beliefs about us, about life, about, how big and of an importance or a role you can play. And so, yeah, I think that's amazing. I think that's great. And I totally see that. And I mean, it's something that I want, obviously, more and more people to understand. We're bigger. We have more to give. We're bigger than we realize. And it's not until you actually push yourself or put yourself in those positions where you have to push and give more, because it's not going to cut it, just the bare minimum, or sometimes even what's expected, you going a little bit above and beyond that gives you proof and evidence that, like, man, that made a difference, or that meant something to that person. And it just becomes this, not evidence not evidence only for us, but I feel like for the world around us. Sometimes like that 110% is, you don't have to stop and help somebody push their car. You don't have to give somebody money that's asking, like you would. And not to say that we always have to, but when you do, you go a little bit extra and you give a little bit more. You try a little bit harder. It just becomes evidence to yourself, but also it gives like others the permission that giving more, being more, showing up more, like that actually means something. That actually, right? And so, I love that you shared that. And I know we've been going for a minute, but man, this has been some gold. And so, kind of coming to a close, and in what you shared, what is one thing for everybody watching that it can be anything, but that you would challenge them to help maybe shift their mind, or maybe it's like a daily practice, maybe it's something they could adopt into their life or into their daily structure. If anything, I mean, what is something that you feel like would help people? This could be something that's helped you tremendously. This could be something that you've watched others, like, hey, by doing this. But when we talk about allergic to average, not settling, that desire for more, being different, thinking different, right? What is something that you might challenge or ask people to, like, hey, if you could do this, you could do that, but what's something you would give them?
I'm glad you asked this because I wanted to do this earlier and I did it. It has to be the game changer. Okay. It has to be the notebook. So I challenge all of you, everybody listening, watching, to go to your local Walmart and get you a little, this one's Matt's. I don't know how big this is, but this one's mine. My first one was even smaller. I mean, it was probably like this big. It was like less than $5 at Walmart. I mean, the little Mead, we buy a bunch of them for our kids every school year, Go next time you're at Walmart, go to the office section, get you a little notebook and a pen, maybe a box of pens. Make it a good pen. Choose the pen. Make it something that when you write with it, man, you write good, whatever it is about the pen. Some people, different pens,
They'll take a free one.
Exactly. Yeah. So the pen also means something too, but, get you something to write on. Okay. And start with your to-do list. When you get it and you get home and whatever the time before you go to sleep, write everything you have to do down for the next day. And I'm talking about everything. Like on mine, I literally have wake up, coffee, read, journal, right? And so, it doesn't matter if it's the same things that you do take the kids to school, go to work, everything. And then when you get off work, the things that you have to do, run the kids here, run the kids there, go here, see this person, see that person, do this. Oh, I said I was going to do that. Write it down, get it out of your head, get it onto paper, and check them off as you go throughout the day. As you wake up and you get your coffee, strike them things off the list, and stick with it every day, and then before you go to bed the next day, same thing, write it down. Goals, gym goals, diet goals, like for all our fitness people out there, like, I like to write down what I'm going to do in the gym the next day. Cause sometimes that'll bog me down. I'll get to the gym and I'll be like, dang, what am I going to do?
10 minutes trying to figure out
give it 5 minutes, and just write out boom, boom, boom. That way you're already thinking about it. You already know what you're going to do. So, and then, too, if something's got you frustrated, if something, made you mad, if somebody said something that you didn't agree with, that's stuck with you, or you heard something that was a gold nugget, or, you saw something in a movie, write it down and go back and revisit, go look at the next day, see what you got done, see what you didn't, move that over to the next day. So that's what I'm extending a personal challenge to all of those. If you don't have one, get one. When you get one, we want to see a picture in the comments of your notebook and your to-do list for the day. Drop it in the comments.
Solid. Yeah. That's literally a way to, like, sometimes I feel like we overthink, how to get smarter, more efficient, how to be, more focused. And again, I mean, especially the busyness of every single day, and then you throw social media in there and all your emotions and thoughts about all that. Like, this actually helps you to show up more efficient, more effective every day, knowing what you got to get done. And a lot of it too, I mean, so much of what keeps people up at night, or at least not allowing them to just fall asleep, is I forgot I was supposed to do that. And so if you can just get it out of your head, put it on paper, you can always come back. And that literally allows you to tap into more peace of mind. And so that's a great resource and a great tool. So, hey, the challenge is out there. Get you a spiral and a little notebook, something that you can start to jot down. And there's a lot of things that you could take on, and using your memos on your phone and doing this and that. But there's something, I don't know how to explain it, something special about going back to just pen and paper. A to A with our drops, we went back to the basics. And sometimes you got to master the basics, get back to just jotting things down, get it out of your head. And it is a game changer. It's a game changer. And so anyways, man, this has been a good one. This has been a good Tune In Tuesday. And so we're gonna bring it to an end right there. D-Money, appreciate you being on. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you think. We'll catch you